Welcome to Roman on CVI. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about social skills. This is such a huge topic as social skills pertain to children with CVI, the impact of CVI on social skill development, that I'll take a piece of it today. Today I'd like to ask you if you notice about your student or your own child who has CVI, if they have a tendency to want to use the same objects, have the same play activities, games, same videos, if they want to use the iPad to watch YouTube, which is a very, very common thing for children with CVI to be interested in YouTube. If we think about it, the child with CVI can actually find something that is visually accessible to them, that makes sense to them. They can play it, they can slow it down, they can replay it, they can enlarge it, they can review it. It makes a lot of sense. Whether this child with CVI prefers the same people, prefers the same playmates, if they have playmates, that you see this tendency for the child to not want to branch out too far in any direction when it comes to interacting with others. There are a lot of reasons that this is the case. And it is my belief that we must look first at the characteristics of CVI before we ever begin to ask ourselves questions about other diagnostic labels. So if we look at things like distance viewing, the fact that children with CVI are not able to just simply look out there and monitor their environment, how that reduces their ability to access information through incidental learning. They can't necessarily imitate what they see because the model may be too far away. The actions take place too quickly. They're there and gone before the child's latency allows them to actually process it. Whether the child is able to interpret the social cues that are things like approach behaviors that occur in mutual eye contact. The ability to feel confident that you're recognizing a person by their face before you hear their voice. Children with CVI themselves, who have been able to explain some of this to me, describe great frustration and how they feel as though after a few attempts or they get somebody's name incorrect because their body persona looks similar to Jane, but actually this is, Joey, that they actually become reluctant to even try, that they kind of want to stick to that thing they know the best so that they're secure and feel confident that they won't make social errors. This is not to suggest that they have a great sense of social appropriateness to start with, but rather it's more of a sense of self-protection. So, what are some of the things we can do to help? As I mentioned, I just want to review, first of all, that visual latency, movement, color, certainly visual complexity, novelty, of course, distance viewing. All of these characteristics, again, impact a child's ability to develop social skills in a way that a child without CVI does. Even joint attention, the ability for a child to look at something and think, so I have this little object here, missing an ear, and one child looks at it, some adult or other child notices this person looking at it, and we begin to have a mutual conversation about it. If that doesn't happen, if the child with CVI is only sort of limited to those things in their nearest world, or those things that are most familiar, think of the number of pieces of information that are lost, and those are also lost social opportunities. So here are a few things we might want to try. If adults want to try to get a child together with another child, my suggestion is that you think about, first of all, selecting someone who is familiar to the child. It might even be a cousin or a sister, or someone with whom the child's very familiar, somebody that sits next to them in school or something. The adult should model this activity over and over. The adult should not just sort of set it out there and let the other child without CVI take the lead, but rather let that adult take the lead, model what's happening so the child with CVI can begin to learn what the routines are of this activity and not have to depend upon the sound it makes or what they think it does or revert back to some other behavior. So if, for example, if it's a toy where you put balls into a tube and they come down and they go around a funny little channel and they come out and we put them in a bucket, that seems pretty straightforward. However, if the child with CVI is not monitoring what's happening, doesn't even notice how this activity is initiated, that child may revert to an older, more primitive social and play behavior and just start throwing the balls. What's going to happen after a short time is that that joint activity is just going to break apart. So if the adult models it repeatedly and then slowly brings the children in together to do it, that can be helpful. I would suggest that these play activities or routines or what you're setting up not be random, but that you select things that the individual CVI has some familiarity with or that are similar to something they like, so that they don't have to do the entire novelty load with something that's brand new. But if we're going to make, ornaments to hang from an outdoor tree for the birds to, pick seeds from, we're probably going to, let's use a shape, let's use a color, let's use something that has maybe some movement properties to it in order to help link what the child attends to this new activity. It's important that we give lots of opportunities for previewing. So you might even say, tomorrow, your friend, Raquel is coming over, and we're going to do an activity. I have a game I think we might like to do, or I have a craft, or we're going to bake something, and let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to show you, and maybe I've created my own video, my own little personal YouTube to kind of help that child look at it over and over and over to get an idea of what the routine's going to be. Same could be true for a field trip. Making sure that the child has ample opportunity to get a sense of where they're going and what's going to happen once they get there. Give that child lots of time to preview that. So those multiple exposures will also help with that previewing. Begin peer play with something that your child likes, not necessarily something that child likes, that has to do, again, with the novelty issue. And I also recommend that as adults take children with CVI and adolescents and adults with CVI to new places, that you begin to create a visual log, like a video log, that shows some of the highlights of what that is all about. This is what the sign looks like. This is what the entrance looks like. These are how the tables are arranged. Look at this. This is where you can buy popcorn. This glass part in the front, that's where we buy the tickets. And then over time, as you get a log of these, as you get a file full of these activities, and they can be short, they can be 3-4 minutes long, you can begin to use comparative language to talk about how this new movie theater is the same. We buy the tickets the same way. Isn't that interesting? But when we go in the door, isn't it funny how the popcorn is straight ahead? It's not at our right like it was before. How we can help children begin to see how these new experiences can be linked to ones they know. And also, by using comparative language, help children begin to see that there are links between these things and that every new experience is not just a one and done. It's really a critical factor. So I hope these ideas will help get people started, and there's much, much more to talk about around social skill development for children with CVI. Thank you.